Hare Krishna, Prabhuji's Mataji's Dandavat Pranam. Thank you for coming on a weekday. I know you all have offices, but still you chose to come here. Wonderful to see you all. So, a little bit of introduction about Prabhuji. Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, he did his engineering in electronics and communication from Pune Engineering College. Huh? More. Hare Krishna, is it good? Hare Krishna. So, from electronics and communication from Pune Engineering College, he worked in a multinational company, and then he thought he should serve, in ISKCON because he has seen many things around him, and he joined full time as ISKCON as a brahmachari. And he's very intellectual. You'll see in his volume ante Prabhuji akkadiki. Okay, Prabhu. Prabhuji, please, I will adjust volume. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Okay, Hare Krishna. Inka penchal. Hare Krishna. Ante room loki kunchi. But fan kunchi tagichame Prabhu. Then you will see. That side, Prabhuji. Come on the steps. Prabhuji, one more thing. You can come to the steps. There is a lot of space on the steps. Balakrishna Prabhu and Vishwa Prabhu. You can, if you want, there is a lot of space here. Come on the steps. It's an overflow place for you. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. How is it, Prabhuji? Better?
Hare Krishna.
Some of the Prabhuji.
No, it's my attorney. I turn on. You turn off.
Hare Krishna.
Can you talk to
There is some resonance happening.
I'll switch it off. Little, only little. You should only little.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare.
Hare.
Go up actually, so that you can make space. So,
दक्षिणे लक्ष्मणो यस्य वामे च जनकात्मजा पुरतो मारुतिर्यस्य तं वन्दे रघुनन्दनम्.
Some Prabhujis can go so they can make more space. Come, just move around. Please adjust, well, more people might come. So Prabhuji is part of one of the highest intellectual bodies of ISKCON, Shastric body of ISKCON. And he's written 14 books. And he's very famous for Gita Daily.
more than 25 books? More than 40.
I'm still old, then I'm more than 40 books. More than 40 books he has written, and he's very famous for his articles for Gita Daily. Every day there is a quote that you get if you register in Gita Daily. You can go to gitadaily.com. Reflections from Gita. He wrote more than 3,000 reflections from Gita. A lot of books he has written. And today we're going to talk about Ramayana, 4 brothers. The last in the series. You will see, you have to hear that. I can't tell in my words, I can't express it, but is very, very intelligent, intellectual person who analyzes things and tells everything in a very easily understandable way. So let's loudly welcome Prabhuji with 3 loud Hari Bols.
ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकाय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः. नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी इति नामिने. नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे वाणी प्रचारिणे विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे. वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद. हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम Rama Rama Hare Hare. My dear Lord, please guide us all so that we can learn how to prevent misunderstandings and when they occur, to resolve them in a way that brings us all closer to each other and closer to you. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for coming today. And so today I am going to discuss about the last session in the series on four brothers in the Ramayana. So I'm going to talk about basically the theme of how differences of opinion arise and how they can be addressed. So basically, we can have a map for managing differences of opinion. What does it mean? The differences of opinion can arise from... Okay, right. Behind? Go from... What happened? Hare Krishna. Is this better? So, when two people have differences of opinion, we'll discuss how among the four virtuous brothers, Ram, Lakshman, Bharat and Shatrughan, also there were differences. But we'll see how those differences are very different from, say, the difference between, say, Vali and Sugriv, or between Vibhishan and Ravan. So generally speaking, differences can arise from three broad factors. One is our own motivations. Now, what do we want in life? If two people want fundamentally different things in life, then disagreement is inevitable. Second is that the people can have two different assessments of the situation. That, okay, what exactly is the problem? That is, two people can have different opinions about that. And then people can have different opinions about the processes. That means, okay, how do we deal with this situation? So if we put it in terms of our analysis of the inner world, through our Gyanendriyas, we do assessments. What we understand, how we perceive, we assess it. Through our Karmendriyas, we map strategies, we map tactics. These are processes. So sometimes two people may agree, this is the problem, but they may disagree how to deal with the problem. Some people may disagree what is the problem itself. And now inside us is our mind, our heart, where our own values are there. So two people may have different motivations itself. So that means the motivations come from inside us, and the assessments and the processes, they are associated with largely what is outside and how we see it. So we could say these two are associated with our senses. They are more associated with the externals. They are more situational. And motivations are more personal. They are more internal. Now, among these three, which kind of differences do you think are the most difficult to deal with? Internal. If two people have just different motivations itself, then it's very difficult to reconcile. Say, when we consider Vibhishan and Ravan. Now, Vibhishan was concerned about doing the right thing, not just from a moralistic perspective, but even from a strategic perspective. Why for fulfilling the desire of one person, entire kingdom should be endangered. And Ravan was, I want to show my power and I want to get my pleasure, whatever be the cost for it. So when fundamental motivations are different, then things become almost irreconcilable. Now, just because motivations are different doesn't mean that they're always irreconcilable, because we also have different motivations of different priority, different degrees. That some motivation may be extremely important for us, some motivation may not be that important. Say, for example, when we have a family, for one person the motivation might be that we want stability, continuity. So let's stay in the same place, same house, same community, develop relationship. For somebody else in the same family, it might be we want upward mobility. We should earn more money, we should get a better job, we should move to a bigger house. even if that means some disruption. Now, who is right? It's not that one is right and one is wrong over here. Both could be good motivations. Now, as long as both are focused on the welfare of the family. So there could be two motives which are different, but then if you go down to ultimate motive, it is similar. So the ultimate motive is we want welfare for the family. So is the welfare for the family in stability or is it in upward mobility? It depends on the situation. So like that, even motivations when they are different doesn't mean differences have to be irreconcilable. But sometimes they are much more difficult to deal with. So now when we assess the situation, what exactly is the problem? At that level, when we assess, we may decide, okay, that what is the problem, how to deal with it. So when I discussed about the difference between Ram and Lakshman after Ram was exiled to the forest, there's a difference in assessment. Ram felt that this is caused by destiny. He was seeing it as higher factors involved. And Lakshman was seeing it is caused by the weakness of Dashrath or the manipulativeness of Kaikeyi. And then he wanted to hit back at it. So we could say at the level of motivations, the difference is, example is Vibhishan and Ravan. At the level of assessment, the difference would be Ram and Lakshman. So we will continue this and we'll look at certain situations which come up. So those who were not there for the previous session, I'm not going to repeat much from the session, but each session will be a separate standalone session. We are looking at in the overall life, let's put it this way. In the course of the Ramayana, there are various places where there are tensions. There are difficult situations. So one I talked about was between Ram and Lakshman. That happened just immediately at the time of exile. Then after that, there is a bit of a tension between, not a bit of a tension, Bharat and Kaikeyi. We'll discuss this briefly. Our focus is primarily on the four brothers. Then there is a bit of a difference between Bharat and Shatrughan. We'll discuss that. Then there's a difference between Bharat and Lakshman. And then there is the classic discussion between Bharat and Ram. And finally, when they return again, there is a slight interaction with Bharat and Ram. We'll discuss it when it comes up at that time. There are a few other interactions also, but these are the major high-stake interactions. So high-stake interactions means that this could, either the consequences are big for the situation, the consequences could be big for the relationship also. So high stakes can be from both ways. So now when Ram is exiled to the forest, he and Lakshman go. Sita also insists on coming. And they all go to the forest. And Dashrath Maharaj is devastated. He can't live with himself. As a father, he is a responsible person. And every parent wants to do everything they can to prevent any pain from coming on their children. And if the parent becomes the cause of the pain for the child, then it just is unbearable. Although he honored his word, he felt that he had failed his son Ram. And that Ram did not blame him was the glory of Ram, but that made it even more painful for Dashrath. Because he's such a glorious person, he's not even blaming me. He's not even getting angry with me. And that made him even, that was not the purpose of Ram, but that's what happened to him. And then he just could not maintain his life. And he departed from the world. So now, temporarily, the kingdom was kingless. Bharat and Shatrughan were gone to the kingdom of Kekeya. And then Vashishta summoned them back. Vashishta temporarily took on the role of the king in the emergency. And he did not tell them what had happened. Because he thought such a terrible news, it's best to be told in person. Come immediately. And Bharat and Shatrughan had gone with the whole army, with a lot of support staff. But they decided to come with all of it will be very difficult, so they came fast. There's two of them with a few trusted assistants. When Bharat returned, he had a premonition. something terrible has happened. Many of us, we have something like a sixth sense. For some people, it's more developed, some people, it's less developed, but and something terrible has happened. Now, many times nothing has happened, but sometimes it just feels very strongly. When he entered into Ayodhya, all of Ayodhya felt like a ghost town. There's no sign of life over there. It's complete, like a tomb-like inactivity over there. It seemed like a graveyard. What happened to the bustling, alive, joyful city that was there? And he came in. Normally, when he would go out, he would come back. His father would be there to welcome him. And this time his father was not there. And then he expected his father to be with his mother. She was his favorite queen. So he went into his mother's palace. And there his mother was there. And he asked her, he offered his respects to her, asked, where is my father? And Kaikeyi spoke solemnly that the great King Dashrath has departed from the world. And now the kingdom awaits you. This was what she longed to tell. But when Dashrath, he heard Dashrath is dead, he didn't even hear what happened after that. And the kingdom is awaiting. What happened? How did my father die? He says, why was I not informed? He started lamenting. It's so unfortunate. I could not be there with my father in his last moments. How fortunate is Ram that at least he could be there with my father. What did the king say? What did Ram say at that time? Tell me what happened. So then Kaikeyi said, the king's last words when we heard them, he was calling out for Ram, Ram, Ram when he departed from the world. So why was he calling out for Ram? Was he not there with him? He said, Ram has gone to the forest to be exiled for 14 years. Yes. What? Why would Ram be exiled? Ram is sinless. He cannot even contemplate every sinful activity. Why? Why was he sent on exile? And then Kaikeyi explained what had happened. Now, as Bharat heard it, it was shock after shock after shock for him. The first shock was his father's death. The second shock, you can say, it was shock square. It was Ram's exile. Now, the third shock was that his mother was the cause. So first was about the event itself. What happened? The events themselves were shocking. The cause was his mother had done it. So how could my mother do it? And then what was the most shocking was that his mother was telling it all this, I did this for you, for your kingdom, for your pleasure. So her intent, when he heard it, he just couldn't believe it. You think I'll be pleased by this? It's somebody does something terrible for our pleasure. It's not only that something that you did something so terrible, but what kind of person do you think I am that I'll be pleased by you doing something like this? So it was just unbelievably and unbearably shocking for him. And now, what had been Kaikeyi thinking at all this time? So that, in one sense, very few people can actually do something bad while fully knowing it is bad. There are people who are downright demoniac, but even among demoniac people, there are demoniac people who try to believe that they are good. They believe it. So Krishna talks about these kind of people in the Bhagavad Gita. If they don't believe it, at least they portray it. That means they'll say that they will kill people. Idamadhyamaya labdam imam prapse manoratham. And then I want this much money, I have this much money. Then asaumaya hatto shatrur hanishye chaparanapi. This enemy I have killed, that enemy I have killed. And then the idea is, I am so powerful. Ishvaro ham bhogi siddho aham balwan sukhi. But then after that, yakshe dasyami modishya. They will perform sacrifices. They will give charity. and they will want to appear good. But there are other people who actually get joy in causing pain to others. So they don't even want to be good. They actually get joy in being bad. These are actually very dangerous. These are sadistic people. They're not sad, they are sadists. It is more than sad that sadists exist. And so this is actually evil. Evil is where we cause pain for the sake of causing pain. So like that's what Mrigari was told by Narad Muni. If you're a hunter, you have to kill animals. But don't half kill them and enjoy the pain caused to them. So sometimes bad things are done, but bad things are done for some purpose. Somebody wants to conquer a kingdom and they kill the enemy soldiers. Then they want to plunder the loot, so they go and attack families and take property from them. That is, it's not a good mean, neither is a good means, nor is a good ends, but at least they're not causing pain and delighting in the causing of pain. So now Kaikeyi did something terrible, but she's not a terrible person. So what happens is, generally, good people do good things, and bad people do bad things. So we could say people in terms of their nature and their actions. But then there will be occasions when good people do bad things. There could also be occasions when bad people do something good. So this is more the standard. This is more exceptional or rare. So now when good people do bad things, at that time, it becomes very difficult to decide how to respond. When is a good person doing a bad thing an exception, something out of character with their character, and when is it a revelation of their character? So like sometimes the politicians may seem to be very principled and noble and service oriented when they are campaigning, and after they gain power, and then what is that? A politician shakes hands before the election and shakes confidence after the elections. So shakes hearts. What happened over here? What did you do? So now, what is it? There are broadly, when a good person seems to do a bad thing, so there are three possibilities. One is that this good itself was a facade, that they were never good at all. The second is that in the process of gaining power, as they say, power corrupts. In the process of gaining power, they became bad. And the third is that they actually believe that they are still good, and they simply think that the bad is a means to the good. So, like, I will do corruption to maintain power. So when I have power, then I'll remove corruption. So, but to maintain power, I also have to do corruption. Like that. Now, the mind can rationalize things in many different ways. So somebody will say, I'm still pursuing a good end, but for that, I have to use a bad means. Which may be true sometimes, but the thing is, so it's difficult to know. So when a person does something bad, especially a good person does something shockingly bad, how do we make sense of it? So now for Bharat, his mother, when she did something terrible, so what was she thinking? Now, for her, she was thinking, I have to protect the interests of my son. That my son should be the king. And now, in one sense, Ram was the eldest, so it is logical that Ram would be the king. But then, and there was never much of a dispute on this. But what happened? She was the favorite queen, and she thought, therefore, my son should become the king. And she thought that all that I am doing is for Bharat's pleasure. And everybody is telling that I am cold-hearted, people are criticizing me, they are condemning me. But actually, I am doing this selflessly, I am doing all this for my son. So essentially, when Kaikeyi did something terrible, so it's like, we can say Manthara manipulated her, mantra poisoned her ears. But ultimately, the action was done by her. And she insisted on it. So, how did she do it? Because she believed that she was protecting Bharat's interests. So, Kaikeyi, in her mind, she created an imaginary Bharat. And that imaginary Bharat was actually appreciating what all you are doing for my sake. And that imaginary Bharat could continue, or she could justify her actions with that imaginary Bharat till the real Bharat came. So we all can claim, I'm doing this for this purpose, or for this person, this pleasure. And it may be true, it may not be true. But I may be earnest in believing that I am doing it for this person's pleasure. But is what I am doing actually pleasing that person? So it depends. So now when Bharat came, Bharat completely condemned her. He said, now how could you have done something like this? How could you have thought I would be pleased by something like this? This is because of you that our entire kingdom is now drowning in an ocean of lamentation. You cannot be my mother. He says, you must be the goddess of destruction who has descended in our family to ruin our family from inside. Now, these words were so shocking for Kaikeyi that she just couldn't process them. But when she saw the anger, she saw the fury, she saw the disgust in Bharat's eyes, that's when that imaginary Bharat just crumbled apart. Just collapsed and just was destroyed irrevocably. And then the horror of what she had done registered on her. So basically, sometimes in our life, if we consider in our life, there are people who can pull us down. And there are people who can lift us up. So in the case of Kaikeyi, Manthara was a person who pulled her down, and Bharat was a person who pulled her up. Now, if only the person who is pulling us down is there and the person who is pulling us up is not there at all, then we'll get pulled down. Now, sometimes it is happened that the one person is absent completely. Then the other person's influence will be much more. Sometimes both may be present, but one person's influence may be stronger. So in this case, while both people were there, till the time Bharat was not there. So this is the overall situation. But in most of the time what happened? Only Manthara was there and she pulled Kaikeyi down. But when Bharat came back, then Bharat brought her back to her senses. If we look at it with respect to Dhritarashtra, now Kaikeyi, she did one bad thing. Dhritarashtra kept doing many bad things. In Dhritarashtra's case, we could say there was Duryodhan who was pulling him down, and there was Vidura who was trying to pull him up. And the pull of Duryodhan was so strong that as long as Duryodhan was in the picture, Vidura's words had no impact. It was only when Vidura was only when Duryodhan was no longer in the picture, Duryodhan was killed, then Vidura's words started registering. So we may have good people and bad people in our life. Now which people influence us more? That depends on us ultimately. We choose that. So at least for Kaikeyi, so that the Kaikeyi was no longer a threat. Kaikeyi was repenting. Now Bharat had to deal with the situation. He performed the last rites of his father. See, when one person whom we thought was good does something terrible, then it just destabilizes everything. Because, okay, who all are supporting that person? Who all are opposing that person? Who is actually good and who is pretending to be good? All that is a lot of chaos. It was not just pain that Ram had been exiled, but there was chaos in the kingdom. And then, a lot of people were thinking that, would Kaikeyi do this on her own? So was Bharat also into it? So now Bharat had to face this either unspoken or sometimes spoken accusation that either you were the actual cause behind all of it or you were at least complicit in it. That. So then how does he reject that? How does he counter that? So now he has to counter it to many people, and we see that the very thing that he does to counter it for the citizens of Ayodhya, that very thing ends up increasing the suspicion of Lakshman. We'll see how that happens. The first thing is, we'll talk about three broad things. I won't go into specific verses, but broad themes here. That first is that there is more, first two are in terms of words. There is condemnation and clarification. So he, in unequivocal terms, condemned what Kaikeyi had done. He condemned what Kaikeyi had done, and he condemned Kaikeyi also, to some extent at least. It was only when Ram told him that don't hold it against Kaikeyi for what happened. This was the will of destiny. Then he became a little more gentle with Kaikeyi. So that condemnation, I not only don't support this, I'm not complicit with it, I totally condemn it. And then now clarification, everybody can say that I am innocent, I am blameless. But it is how it is said. It is very difficult for most people to actually lie with a straight face. If somebody can do that, then that's a dangerous skill. Now, especially on very grave matters. So his earnestness is evident to everyone. When Vashishta asked him, when he went to the forest to get to Lord Ram, Bharadwaj asked him, I trust you. I trust that you do not have any ill intentions against Ram. So Bharat started crying. He said, oh sage, if you suspect me like this, then I am ruined. He said, I knew nothing about it. I totally condemn it. I want Ram to come back. That is why I am going to search for Ram. So now, sometimes we say that actions speak louder than words. That is true, or sometimes we say walk your talk. That is important. But in many cases, talking is also a part of the walking. And words are also important. Because while actions are the ultimate verdict, but how we speak, how we conduct ourselves in terms of the words we speak, that is also very important in revealing what is in our heart. So when we are falsely accused of something, sometimes what happens is people may think that there's a phrase in English called guilty by association. That means if you were with this person, then you must be guilty. So in America, there's a huge scandal about sexual abuse going on. There was a big sexual predator, and many politicians are involved with, they used to be associated with that person. So everybody whose photos are found with that particular person, they're all suspected to be guilty by association. Now how much they were involved, not involved, that is something which investigation may reveal. But the thing is, for him, for Bharat, this Kaikeyi was his mother. So by Kaikeyi's actions, he was considered guilty by association. And now he had to distance himself from her. So now, among all the pains that a person can face, especially for a good person, to be accused falsely is one of the most painful. And even accusations can be of different degrees. Somebody may accuse us about not having some ability. That's okay. Somebody may accuse us of having some bad judgment. We made some wrong decision. But somebody accuses us of having bad character, bad morality. That becomes true. A person's character. When a person's character is assassinated, often it is that time that person's character is also revealed. Because especially if a person is very powerful, at that time, that person, when we are falsely accused of something, we feel a sense of self-righteousness. And you are making this wrong accusation, I will destroy you for it. So Bharat could have done that. Anybody who accuses me of this is not true. I told you it's not true. Why don't you believe it? I'll punish you if you don't believe this. No, it was not that he didn't in any way abuse his power. So, but the most important, so what we speak is important, but then finally was if something bad has happened and we are associated with the bad, the correction is important. And for Bharat, the correction was, he said, I will go to the forest and I will get Ram back. And he also told the citizens that, sometimes what happens when there is a trust deficit, then it's important that, like in justice, a principle is not only should justice be done, but justice should be seen to be done. So when there is a trust deficit, that when there is a greater transparency, trust can be revealed, trust can be restored. So then Bharat therefore said to the citizens, the leaders of the citizens, he said, all of you come with me, we'll go together. So it was not just at one level, it was to ensure that people actually saw that he was serious, he wanted to get Ram back. But that was the secondary purpose, to have his own character being proven, vindicated, that he's innocent, to prove his innocence. But more than that, it was to correct the wrong, to fix the wrong. Because he was a younger brother, he felt that that Ram may not listen to me. But if all the leading citizens of the country come, if the army comes, if we go with a show of force, then the influence will be much, much more. The impact will be much more. But before he went to the forest, and after he went to the forest, there are two incidents. So now, as I said here, there could be differences about, we're talking about, where are we? So now, was Kaikeyi's motive bad? Well, she did a wrong action, but her motive was not really evil. Her motive was not to hurt Ram. Her motive was to benefit Bharat. But how to benefit Bharat? She made a mistake in the assessment. And that she was corrected. But then, when they were coming back after Dashrath Maharaj's last rites, and where his funeral ceremony was done, the last rites were done, when they were coming back, at that time, they were passing by Kaikeyi's palace, and there, Bharat and Shatrugna, they were going ahead. So some of the courtiers approached Bharat and he started talking with them, and Shatrugna kept walking ahead. And Shatrugna walking ahead, at that time he saw from Kaikeyi's palace, Manthara came out. And Manthara was wearing very expensive ornaments, very expensive clothes, and she was strutting about. Now, on seeing this, Shatrugna just snapped. And he got so angry, he ran towards her. And when Manthara saw, she tried to run away. But Bharat pounced on her, caught her, and started shaking her violently. He said, you are the cause of all the pain that everybody in Ayodhya is suffering. You deserve to be punished. Now his anger was not just at what she had done. It was also that because her very actions showed that she felt no remorse. The king has died, the last rites have been performed, and somebody is going out wearing celebratory clothes. There is a situational appropriateness. Like if somebody goes for a funeral ceremony, we don't want fashionable clothes. There's some kind of sober clothes over there. But for her, when the scheme had been successful, Kaikeyi had given her a lot of jewels, Kaikeyi had given her a lot of her expensive clothes, and she just couldn't resist the urge. I got these clothes, I want to wear them. So it was so inappropriate, and that inappropriateness showed that she had no remorse. So Kaikeyi had a change of heart, but Manthara did not seem to have. So at that time, Shatrugna got so angry, started shaking her violently. She screamed and called for Kaikeyi. Kaikeyi came running and Kaikeyi said, stop Shatrugna. Please stop. Shatrugna was not ready to listen at all. And seeing the commotion, Bharat started coming near. Kaikeyi ran towards Bharat and she said, get Shatrugna, stop him. To stop. So Bharat did not even look at Kaikeyi. He turned towards Shatrugna and he said, oh Shatrugna, what you are doing right now Dozens of times I have felt the urge to do the same. But one thought has stopped me. Is if we do anything to them, like he's referring to Kaikai and Mantara both. He says Ram will be displeased with us. So he says, for we want to go the forest and get Ram back. And for Ram's sake, let her go. So this is, at this particular point, what happens is, no, there is no dispute that Mantara is at fault. But how is that to be dealt with? Punishing Mantara is one thing. But to fix the whole thing, we have to get Ram back. And therefore, for Ram's sake, let her go. So quite often, what this particular incident illustrates is that in this case, it was the assessment was the same, motivation was the same, but the process was different. How do we deal with the situation? That process was different. So now in this case, what happens quite often for us, there is a tension between reason and emotion. That logic and emotion says, don't do this. For example, say, don't get angry, don't yell at this person. But emotion may say, this person done something terrible. My anger is morally justified. I should get angry. So now, sometimes with reason, we can fight emotion. But if we actually want to fight emotion, we need a higher emotion. Higher emotion means what? That, say, two siblings may have a fight. And each person may feel I am right and the other person is wrong. But then if both of them have respect for the parent, what you have done is terrible, but I'll stop myself, if not for your sake, but for our parents' sake. So bhakti, in that sense, is that higher emotion that enables us to restrain our normal emotions. Somebody may have hurt us terribly, but by remembering that higher reality, remembering Krishna and understanding that everyone is a part of Krishna, the focus is not so much on getting back at this person, the focus is on fixing the situation. And that way, this higher emotion can help us overcome the lower emotion. Now after this, so it's not a matter of sometimes simply restraining the emotion or repressing the emotion. It's also about activating a higher emotion. And the activation of the higher emotion is what helps us to deal with the lower emotion. Now then when they go to the forest, it's with a complete show of strength. And at this point, the Ram, Lakshman, Sita, they go to Chitrakoot, they are settled in Chitrakoot, Adri, Niketana Rama. They settle in Chitrakoot, and it's on top of a hill. And they hear some huge commotion. And what's going on? So Lakshman climbs on top of a tree and he looks. And he says, some huge army is coming. And is coming straight towards this hill itself, towards us. And then he sees this army is actually the Ayodhya's army. And then he sees this Bharat is at the head of the army. And on seeing that, Lakshman gets enraged. Lakshman thinks that Bharat is not satisfied with having sent you to the forest. Now, through Kaikai, now he has come to kill you. And he has brought the entire army for that purpose. But he doesn't know I am here to protect you. Today, my arrows will cause his blood to fall on this earth. And my anger will be satisfied by his death. And he goes on a rant over there. So at that time, Ram remains very calm. And he says, oh Lakshman, what has Bharat done to offend you? Why are you so angry with him? Or is the anger about something else? Is it that in a rush of emotion, you agreed to come with me to the forest, but now seeing the actual reality of the austerity of forest life, you have become irritated? If you are finding this to be too difficult, when Bharat comes, I will tell him to stay and you can go back to the kingdom. Now, so Ram has complete confidence in Bharat. So here Ram and Lakshman, they have completely different views of Bharat. Now what is happening is Bharat is still, sorry, Lakshman is still trying to process what happened. And although he agrees with Ram when he says, okay, let's keep the family harmony and let's not do anything. Ram says it's the act of destiny. But for him, see what happens when there has been a disagreement, and we may go along with one course of action, the course of action that we did not really like, but we agree. But what happens is still, maybe I was right. That feeling, and maybe future events will prove that I am right. So what happens? We are looking for evidence to support our idea. And it's not an intentional malice or something like that. It's just human psychology. Like if I have agreed to a course of action that is different from what I would have done normally, then still maybe I was right. Lakshman, when he sees this whole army coming, this is proof. But it's come with ill intention. Now, what happens over here is that we are. Now, from here, I'm going to Rishikesh. Rishikesh was now the world yoga capital. It is still the world yoga capital, but now it has become also one of the biggest cities in India for adventure sports. So it's like if you go by the Ganga, you will see Western people on the banks of the Ganga sitting in yogic meditation. And you will see Indians in boats playing Bollywood songs and making a lot of noise. So it's a bit jarring over there. So the thing is, there people go for, say, you jump off from parachute, or there's bungee jumping and stuff like that. Now you feel it's very dangerous. You jump, and if something goes wrong, you can just die or get severely injured. So that jumping can be dangerous, and many of us may not try out such adventure sports. But there's a more dangerous jumping that we all tend to do. That is jumping to conclusions. Isn't it? So the most dangerous jumping is jumping to conclusions. So we see some evidence, and from that evidence, we make some perception, and from there, we come up with a huge story. What is it actually? So basically, there is a very simple difference between curiosity, and the opposite of curiosity is what? It is bias. Bias, prejudice. There are many different ways in curiosity. We can look at the opposite of curiosity. Curiosity is basically what is happening here. Let me understand the evidence, and then based on that, I'll form a theory about what is happening. So curiosity is evidence first, and from that evidence, I come to a theory. But in the bias, what happens? I already have a theory. I'm just looking for evidence to support my theory. So naturally, whatever evidence doesn't support my theory, I just downplay it. Neglect it. I call it bad data. So if somebody I believe is a bad person, and even if they act very nicely, this is just a show. So sometimes our perceptions, our preconceptions, our biases, they can actually overshadow us so much. It's like what the other person is speaking, sometimes we can't hear it because our mind is speaking and blaming that person. So that's why sometimes when there's a conversation between two people, are you hearing to understand, or are you hearing to counter? Sometimes it becomes like that. And if somebody is hearing to counterattack, then there cannot be much of a communication at all. So now, for Lakshman, it's this Bharat coming with the army is evidence that this is something he's come to attack. That there is a malified intention among the remaining family members in that branch of the family. But then Bharat comes up, and Bharat falls at the feet of Ram, and then he's saying, Bharat is in great grief. Lord asks, how is our father? What is he doing? And Bharat describes that Dasharatha has departed. I think this Ram is shocked, then Lakshman is shocked, Sita is grief struck. Then they offer some water in the nearby river for Dasharatha, and then they start talking after that. Then Bharat submits his request. Please, he says, I don't want the kingdom. He gives 3 reasons. He says, I don't want the kingdom I don't have the qualification for ruling the kingdom, and everybody else wants that you be the king. That's why all of them are here. So it's my desire, my ability, and everyone else wishes. So there is a beautiful discussion between Ram and Bharat at that time. There are many points in that discussion, but I will focus on 2 points over here. So now here, what has happened? We go back to the map. So both of them, it's not both of them motives are good. The assessment, okay, now the kingdom is there and the kingdom has to be ruled. So who should rule the kingdom? So the difference between Bharat and Lakshman, that are there 8 of these Ashtasakhis are there over here? It's beautiful. So are there Radha Krishna in between?
No, Prabhu.
The 8 lotus, okay. Beautiful.
Krishna is here.
Yeah, I remember that picture last time I had come.
The hair is
Very stylish Krishna. So Balaram is more stylish. So now Bharat assesses the situation wrong. So Lakshman assesses the situation wrong, and therefore he wants to attack. Now in the case of Ram and Bharat, it is okay, the kingdom has to be ruled. Who should rule it? The kingdom has to be taken care of. So from Bharat's perspective, there are 3 main things. He says, my desire is that you rule it. I don't want the kingdom. Then it is, my ability. He says, my qualification, my ability. He says, and then finally he says, everyone's desire. So now beyond that, there is a discussion about what is actually the right thing. There's a objective side, subjective side. So what is the right thing to do? So he tries to persuade my mother. This Kaikai she did a terrible thing. You are the eldest and you should be the king. And Lord Ram says that I was not there when my father departed. The only way I can serve my father now is by honoring his words. I'll stay in the forest. And Kaikai comes forward and says that, it is I who told him, made that request, insisted on that demand. So I take it back now, you please come back. So Ram says that may be true, but this is what the word my father gave. Therefore, I need to honor this word. And so from Ram's perspective, it's primarily, this is the last service I can do to my father. And then the discussion goes on and on to and fro. Then finally Bharat says that, no, I cannot take this kingdom. If you do not come back, then I will stay with you in the forest. You have to take this kingdom. And he sits down and starts sitting in a yogic position. So I start doing meditation over here. So at that time Lord Ram says that, oh Bharat, your love has won. You came to give this kingdom to me, I accept the kingdom. And Bharat's face blooms like a flower in the blossom. And then Lord Ram says, I accept the kingdom, and in order to honor to my father, I entrust this kingdom to you for 14 years. So at that time, like in a game of chess, there is check and counter check. But now Bharat understands this is checkmate. So then he says, if you have truly accepted the kingdom, then I want you to be on the throne. So please give me your padukas. He says, they will be on the throne and they will rule. I will rule on their behalf. So when he goes back, what happens? The paduka are on the throne and Bharat's seat is below. So the position in the court reveals the disposition of his heart. And through this, while it is a very painful situation, but through the painful situation, what emerges is something very uplifting. From both sides, there is a sense of selflessness. Lord Ram wants to selflessly honor his father's words, and Bharat wants to selflessly honor Ram's position. The kingdom is yours. And this, in one sense, is the best way a difference of opinion can be resolved. That Lord Ram, although Lord Ram sticks to his principle, okay, how did it come ahead? Although Lord Ram stays in the forest, he does not agree to Bharat's specific proposal, but he respects Bharat's sentiment. And then there is a symbolic acceptance of his desire. So that's why when there are differences of opinion, sometimes the reality is such that only one course of action can be done. So sometimes when we take a compromise, there may be no 50% compromise. It may be almost like 95% on one side and 5% on the other side. But that 5% on the other side shows that I appreciate your sentiment. I appreciate your concern. I appreciate your position. And now for Bharat, this Paduka is very important. Now, if we consider the symbolism, I'll conclude with this last point over here. Symbolism is, so there is something which is like a practical change and a symbolic change. Sometimes practical reconciliation. Like sometimes you may say there should be a win-win solution, both sides win. Sometimes reality may not really allow a win-win solution. You have to do only one thing. But then if the other person is at least symbolically acknowledged, appreciated. So there is symbolic, there is acceptance. That was in the case of Ram and Bharat. But even a symbolic rejection came when Duryodhan said to Krishna, I will not give you even enough land to put the tip of a needle through. So when a person is not ready to even offer a symbolic gesture, then that means that it's not possible to find any common ground at all. And then confrontation becomes impossible. So when there are differences of opinion, sometimes one side may succeed, may prevail. And when that one side prevails, then how they go about it after that. So it's like, say, two people, they are on a collision course. One person wants to go one way, another person goes another way. There's a possible collision over here. Now, if after that, both people agree to go a particular way, the other person also agrees to go that way. So now, at least the collision has stopped and there's some reconciliation. But after that, now if the one person is constantly parading their superiority over the other person, so, oh, my plan was accepted, my plan worked, your plan was wrong. Then what happens is, it is like being penny wise and pound foolish. You get the desired result, but we lose the relationship in the process. So sometimes some symbolic accommodation is essential for the other person also to feel that my perspective is valued. For many people, when there is an argument, when there is a difference of opinion, it is not just about the specific position that is there. It is that I and my perspective and my contribution, are they valued or are they dismissed? So to the extent they are valued, to that extent that person can be peaceful. And now the level of selflessness that was there in Lord Ram and Bharat both, that is very difficult for us to have. But still, that when the motives of both sides are to work for some shared higher interest, then the other person's feelings, the other person's sentiments, the other person's perspectives are also valued. Sorry. The last incident is that thank you. Then Lord Ram goes to the forest. Bharat becomes the king, but he stays in Nandigram. He lives a life of austerity just as Lord Ram is living. Now, when Lord Ram wins Sita back, defeats Ravan, and he comes. So he comes near Ayodhya. At that time, he's come to Chitrakoot. They come by Pushpak. And there, he tells Hanuman, please go ahead and give the news that I have returned, that I am nearby and I am soon going to come. And he says that I want to see if in my absence, if Bharat has become attached to the kingdom, if you see even the slightest sign of displeasure in Bharat's face at the news of my return, then observe that, let me know. I will not go back. I'll stay on the forest. So Hanuman goes, and when he tells Bharat that I am the messenger of Lord Ram, and Lord Ram says he is nearby, he will come soon. Now Bharat just becomes so joyful. It's like suddenly the sun has risen amidst the darkness, and he starts glorifying Hanuman. Now he doesn't know, as per the Valmiki Ramayana, they have never met before. So he says, oh messenger, whoever you are, you have brought such good news. I will give you whatever you want. I will give you villages, I will give you wealth, I will give you maidens, I will give you chariots. You have brought such glorious news for me. And seeing that just spontaneous, effusive expression of joy and celebration in Bharat, tears start coming in Hanuman's eyes. It's just this person's devotion for Ram, how great is it? Just like when Uddhava goes to Vrindavan and seeing the gopis' devotion for Krishna, Uddhava is stunned. So Hanuman also feels how great is the devotion. As Ram, he'd have no hesitation in coming back to the kingdom. And then he gets the citizens of Ayodhya to come, he spreads the information, tells them prepare for the welcoming Ram back. And then he waits. He's waiting. Lord Ram comes through the Pushpak Viman, and when he sees the airplane coming in, just seeing the airplane itself, Bharat offers obeisances, and Bharat has got Arti paraphernalia ready. And as Lord Ram descends from the chariot, and he comes out, and Bharat is performing at Arti to welcome Lord Ram back. Bharat comes and bows before Ram. Ram lifts him and embraces them, and they embrace each other very tightly. 14 years ago, when Ram had decided to stay on in the forest, they had embraced each other. Since that time, so many things have happened, but their love for each other has remained not only unchanged, it has become deeper because it has survived the tests of time. So it is this joyous reunion that happens, that in one sense these four brothers who were separated by circumstances that they did not want, that they could not control, are now finally reunited back, because their hearts were always united in a mood of service, in a mood of dharma, in a mood of bhakti. And that's what situations may have put them in different places, but the united hearts brought them all back together finally. So I'll summarize what we discussed today. I discussed three main points. First, we discussed about how that when there are differences of opinion that come, how can they be dealt with? Okay, again, just put it here. Okay. When differences come, we discussed that they can come because of three factors. What are the factors? Motivations, assessments, processes. Processes means okay. Assessment is also more jnana indriyas. Motivation is what we bring from inside, and processes is what we karma indriyas. How we decide to solve the problem. And then we discussed about Bharat and Kaikeyi. Basically, we discussed about two phases: what happened in the kingdom and what happened outside the kingdom or in the forest. So in the kingdom, we discussed Bharat and Kaikeyi's interaction, that Kaikeyi had created an imaginary Bharat, and the imaginary versus the real Bharat. So we may genuinely think I am doing this to please the XYZ person, but is that actually pleasing that person? It may not be. So we discussed how bad association, good association works on a person. Somebody is trying to pull us down, somebody is trying to pull us up. So it's important that when we are making big decisions in our life, we have around us the people who are going to pull us up, not the people who are going to pull us down. So now, then we also discussed about how then when there's this Bharat and Shatrughna, there was a slight difference. So this was temporarily, the motivations were temporarily different. The motivations in one sense ultimately were the same, that both they wanted the welfare, but she thought it was very different. She assessed that when Bharat becomes the king, only then things will be okay. So this difference was at the level of assessment. Then Bharat and Shatrughna difference was level at the process. So they both wanted to fix the situation, but what Bharat told Shatrughna is that if you fix it by punishing Kaikeyi or Manthara, then Ram will be angry with us, and therefore Ram will not return. So therefore we focus on, it's not simply a fight between reason and emotion, which is important. Our intelligence, our logic has to be sound, but sometimes it's also on the side of reason, we have to have some higher emotion. So anger towards Kanthara was justified emotion, but devotion to Ram and wanting service of Ram, that is a higher emotion. And in the forest, we discussed about the meeting Bharat and Lakshman, how there was a misunderstanding. So this was at the level of, again, assessment. They assessed wrong. Lakshman assessed wrongly, and that is because what happens? That sometimes we may have a particular opinion, we go along to other opinion, but the difference between bias and curiosity. Bias is where the theory, the opinion comes first. Opinion becomes much more important than the evidence. So rather, not just becomes more important, it is based on the opinion we search for supportive evidence. But if the curiosity is there, we try to look for the evidence, and based on that, we try to see what is the opinion that I should form based on this evidence. So Lakshman happened to jump to conclusions. Then in the Bharat and Ram, what happened? Both were selfless, but then the reality was such that both of their opinions could not work out. So there was a symbolism became very important over there. The symbolic acceptance was there. Lord Ram accepted the kingdom, and he showed that by giving his padukas. So sometimes when one person wins a particular argument, or one person's options are accepted, then the other person should not lord it over the other person. I said accepted is symbolically I appreciate you also. And then finally, we discussed Bharat and Ram at the end of the exile. So start of exile and end of exile. So at the end of exile, what happens? Then they are united. Bharat is there as a king, but his attachment to the kingdom never becomes more than his attachment to Ram. That's why he welcomes Ram back. And situations may put people apart, but when their hearts are in the right place and their motivations are good, then they all come back finally together. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments? So one point I forgot here about clarification, condemnation and correction. That when we are falsely accused, then both our words and actions are important. Yeah. Any questions or comments? Yes, ma'am.
Hare Krishna. So we have I don't know if a question or comment, I don't know, you decide.
Okay.
Do you think that you have touched the bottom of analysis in any of these topics? Or still you think that no, there is some more? You think like that?
I did a Ramayana series on Ram Navami in America last year. So he told me this was the most Rasik story of Ramayana I heard. so, so, okay, so I don't think it's possible to exhaust the analysis that is done, because in some ways it is scripture is both a window and a mirror. Window means it reveals us to the spiritual world. It reveals to us the love between the Lord and the devotees. But it's also a mirror because in scripture we learn to see ourselves, where we are. So, and both these visions of scripture, as a window, there are unlimited pastimes of the Lord and there are many subtleties among the pastimes. So we learn them more and more. Generally by reading the Acharya's commentaries and contemplating on the scripture, being able to connect one pastime with another pastime. So the aspect of scripture as a window becomes bigger. But scripture is also a mirror. And as we grow, as we evolve, then we also see scripture from a different perspective. So yeah, this is like this could be seen like this. So I think it is largely a reflection. Largely, not a reflection is not the best word because it's assumed only the mirror, but largely a expression of where we are in our spiritual life. So for some people, that mirror aspect of the scripture is more important. For some people, the window aspect is more important. And both are there. Both are of value. So for me, at the stage where I am in my spiritual life, the mirror aspect is more important for me. The window aspect, of course, is important ultimately. But right now, so I would say I don't think that there is any end, because it's as in America, as in a college, and there's one boy, he had a quote on his t-shirt. It says, "You are perfect as you are." Nowadays, a lot of people want to have some positive affirmations. And yes, it's good to have positive affirmations. But if you say I'm perfect, then it's like your life journey is over. There's nothing more for you to do, isn't it? You can say you are valuable as you are valued as you are, you are precious as you are. But to say you are perfect, that means it's the end of the journey. It's very egoistic and narcissistic to say like that. So I would say that's why if we say that there's nothing more scripture can reveal to me, then we are being either we are coming to a very stagnated level. So as we grow in our spiritual journey, we will also learn to see scripture as a mirror and see more in scripture also. Okay.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, such a pleasure and blessing to hear you, Prabhuji, and to have you here in our house as well, in Jagannath's house as well. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. So, actually, the mirror and window that you talked about is sort of partially answering my question, but then I realized, Prabhuji, in the last week, I was going through some of your videos, and I realized that even before I came to ISKCON, I used to watch your Mahabharat series. You have done 12 years before. You talk about the Mahabharat characters. One such video that stood in my memory was about Draupadi. So, from Mahabharata to Ramayana, what is your favorite, personal favorite? What is your personal favorite? And then, what you did 12 years ago, about Mahabharata characters, was that a window provision?
Okay. Thank you for that question. If you see that, if we say I gave the Mahabharata, first, I'll answer the first part about it. First is the fascinating Mahabharata characters. Was that more of a mirror? Was it more of a window or a mirror? It was definitely much more of a window at that time. Because this is scripture, how to understand it, how to explain it. At that time in those characters, I do three things. I narrate the story in fair amount of detail. So there it's almost like, I would say 60-70% is the story, 70% or more. Here it was like 20-30% is the story. So then I'm trying to resolve some controversies and draw some lessons. It's mainly those three things. Three things are there: story, controversy, and lesson. But at that time, I would say that when I started traveling abroad, I did this in 2012-13. I started traveling abroad from 2014. So when I started traveling abroad, it was many devotees who travel abroad, they focus primarily on Indians abroad. But my focus was also on trying to reach to non-Indians. And then I noticed that there are so many assumptions that we don't question because it's just a part of our culture and tradition. And for the Western mind, every single thing is why is this like this? Why is this like that? So I remember the most graphically this happened. There was some program in Damodar month, and I was describing Damodar Lila, and all devotees were relishing, and there was an Australian lady. She's looking very uncomfortable. So then I asked her, is something wrong? She said, everything is wrong. I said, what do you mean? He said, what you're describing is full-on child abuse. Tying up a child like this. Child abuse. So now Mother Yashoda is the pinnacle of selfless maternal love. But from her perspective, it can seem like how are you tying up a child like that, is it? So that was quite a jolting experience for me. So then I gave the context and explained how love is also seen in discipline, and in primarily in an agrarian society, there are far more dangers for a child. Child just wanders off. There could be a snake, there could be an animal, and sometimes physical restraints are required. So now we may reject physical restraints, but we have baby proofing in our homes, isn't it? So baby proofing is basically we are preventing the movement of the baby in particular areas. So that principle of that love, if some restraint is created, that doesn't mean abuse. That can also mean love. But the point is that was a very revealing experience for me, and from that time onwards, whenever I read scripture, like one part of me is thinking, if a new Westerner is reading this, what question would come in their mind? So I think that's also has kept the freshness of scripture for me, for many aspects. But okay, how will people see this, and how will I be able to explain this to them? So then that way, so I would say that time all this was not there for me. So it was more of a window than a mirror. And then what is my favorite? It's okay, I am more of my study of philosophy has been more always concept oriented. So my interest is not so much in books as in concepts. So I would say for me by far Bhagavad Gita is the favorite book, because Bhagavad Gita is you could say not just loaded, it's overloaded with concepts. And like there's so many concepts to unravel. And this verse, how it is connected. So that in that sense, Bhagavad Gita is my favorite now, because it's filled with concepts. Now, with respect to the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, I have distant focuses when I study them. I focus on Mahabharata on understanding what is the right thing to do. So the intricacies of ethics, that is also the driving focus of the Mahabharata. What is dharma? So Mahabharata, I find it is it is a much more complex book. Hmm? So in the Ramayana, there is more of misunderstandings. Hmm? It is not a morally complex books. It is largely it is driven by situational misunderstandings. It is what is the right thing to do. There are some situations where that is a deliberation, but most of the times, what is the right thing is clear. So for me, the Ramayana's draw is primarily from relationships perspective. Now, Mahabharata's wisdom is Mahabharata in so many ways is much more reflective of our lived reality. That sometimes we are put in situations where there are no good choices at all. And then how do we make a choice when there is no good choice? That is the predicament that many characters in the Mahabharata face throughout. So the Bhagavatam, of course, is much more for absorption in Krishna. So for more engagement in the world, it is the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, and for the absorption in Krishna, I find the Bhagavatam is extremely enriching. Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Between Shatrughan and Bharat, there was only one difference of opinion. Was there another thing between Shatrughan and Ram also? I mean, Shatrughan character, I'm not able to kind of gauge.
Yeah,
So could you just explain?
yeah. It's Shatrughna. Were there any difference of opinion between Ram and Shatrughna? Not to my knowledge. See, in some ways, Shatrughna in the Ramayana is similar to Nakul and Sahadev in the Mahabharata. They are there, but it's like if in a movie there are too many heroes, then what happens? Some heroes don't get that much screen time. So like that, Shatrughna there is not that much described. In the Uttarakhand, there's a story of Lavanasur, that there's a demon and Lord Ram sends Shatrughna to kill him. And then that kingdom of Lavanasur is given to Shatrughna basically. So that part where Lavanasur has conquered, then that is, so Shatrughna rules that. But apart from that, there's not much description of Shatrughna actually.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Yes. Yes, madam.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam.
Hmm.
Hare Krishna to all the devotees present here. If you permit, can I ask my question in Hindi, because I think so that will justify more.
Sure.
I have heard many people saying that, in Mahabharata, Krishna has done a lot of, tactically obviously, but बहुत छल से चीजें की है. So that, that dialogue pinches a lot when we hear from everyone around us. So how do you see those whatever he has done, to solve any
understood.
situation? He has used many tactics.
Okay, yeah. So in the Mahabharata, Krishna has done many questionable things. So sometimes when people criticize us for that, it hurts. Criticize Krishna for that, I think. So this is three different things over here. That the Mahabharata, as I said, is depicting the complexity of real life. And in real life, sometimes there are just no good choices available. So we may have to make the least bad choice at that particular time. So now what Krishna does, it's interesting. So that's the first point. Mahabharata is very realistic in terms of depicting the challenges that we may face in life. Second is that in the Mahabharata itself, there is almost always a pause whenever any action is done. So for example, when Duryodhana is hit below the belt, below the waist. So at that time, there is a debate at that time itself. Balram objects to it and Krishna defends it. The Devatas speak something, Yudhishthira speaks something, Bhima speaks something. So it's not that it is ethically blind. It's not that Krishna does whatever Krishna does is right. Therefore it has to be accepted. No, there is deliberation at that particular point itself. So now based on that deliberation, a certain conclusion is around it. So generally speaking, what happens is if person A does something and person B does something, So A is doing one thing and B does something wrong at that time. So now why would do that? What B did is something wrong, it seems clear like that. But then, if this is the context, there is a bigger context. And there might be an even bigger context. And in the bigger context, so if, like you say, if you have some video, and the video shows person A is beating the other person, beating, brutally beating that person. Then what a brutal beating. And then we see the full video. The full video shows that this person who's being beaten, that person kicked the other person's child, that person hit their wife, that person was about to rape their wife. And then this person comes on the scene and starts beating the person. So what happens when we see the bigger context? So in the immediate context, this person on the ground and the other person is just beating, it seems terrible. But you see the bigger context, he said this is justified, this is necessary at that point. So when an action seems unfair in one context, we need to look at the bigger context. And we can go into each of the incidents, but I'll just mention this how this approach works. So let's consider two incidents, like Bhima beating Duryodhan, hitting Duryodhan below the waist. Are there particular incidents you had in mind when Krishna ne chal kiya hai?
Krishna was pressing his neck and he had closed his eyes. And Duryodhana enters, he knows whoever he sees will win the war. And Krishna was very tactical at that time. He closed his eyes and he opened it when I think Arjuna was pressing his feet or something. I don't remember the story.
Okay. Okay, that's true. I mean, I don't think that's a tactical thing. It is. Okay, let me complain. Okay, we don't want to go into list of all the controversies because that will become a separate class. It's an important class, but we do a separate class. Let's take whatever I mentioned. I'll focus on the principle. So in the case of Krishna, it was more of Duryodhan's arrogance and Arjuna's service attitude. So Arjuna went at Krishna's lotus feet. Duryodhan set head. And then when Krishna opened his eyes, he saw Arjuna. So I don't think there's any chal in that. And even then, it was not that Duryodhan got a bad deal. He thought actually I got a good deal. He says Arjuna was sentimental into Krishna and we are not going to fight. What is the use? So now if you consider some incidents, say like Bhishma. So now Bhishma and Shikhandi, it is, I don't know if Krishna is that much involved in that also. Because it is Bhishma himself tells this is the way I can be killed. So Krishna's role in that is only two parts. It is Krishna who tells the Pandavas that you have to go to and ask Bhishma now. Because otherwise without his revelation we will not be able to kill him at all. And then second is, we'll come to that here. So second is that when Arjuna is hesitating to fight, Krishna pushes him, you have to fight. So now was that a wrong thing to do? Well, if you go back to the history, see Bhishma is a very principled person. But it's like his sometimes principles can become our compass. They can show us the north. But principles can also become like our blinders. That means that can't see anything except the principle. And that's a complex, that's not a desirable thing. So this is my word and that's what I'm going to stick to. So I'm going to be a celibate and that's what I'm going to stick to. So that's why now in Amba, he gets Amba from Swayamvar and she says that my heart is given to Shalya and I want to be with him, and Shalya rejects her. You have been with another man, although she has not been in any significant sense with another man. But so then what happens? Amba says, you marry me. And she says, no, I have taken a vow. She goes to Parshuram tries to force him and they fight, and Parshuram is not able to defeat him. And Amba ends her life. And Amba comes back as Shikhandi. So she says, I'll come for the destruction of Bhishma. So now one part of Bhishma also feels that what happened to her was not good. So he is not going to give up his vow, but that doesn't mean he's blind to completely unfeeling or blind to the consequence of what is happening. So in one sense, when he says that I will not shoot arrows to anyone who is a woman or who has been a woman. Now, if you talk about previous lives, who was a woman in which life, how do we know that also? But in one sense, That is his way of atoning for what happened to Bhishma, to what happened to Amba because of him. So eventually he has the boon of Ichamrityu, and he says, if Shikhandi attacks, I will not respond. So I don't think there's any deception in that. It is not the most glorious victory for Arjuna that he had to shoot arrows from behind Shikhandi, but so it's more of a sacrifice for Arjuna that his glory would be impinged over there. But then Bhishma, he gives that way, and the Pandavas accept that way. So I don't think there's any immorality over there. It's something questionable, but Bhishma himself desires, I don't want to fight anymore, and this is the way I'll be killed. So the Pandavas accept that. Now, to the other incident, Jayadratha, see, there's a difference between tricking and cheating. It's like in cricket, fast bowler may come running very fast and then bowl a very slow ball, isn't it? And the batsman's bat goes all the way and then the ball comes and hits the stumps, isn't it? So in one sense, tricking is always a part of every game and every competitive endeavor. So a boxer may act as if I'm going to hit over here, and the opponent defends on that side, the boxer hits on the other side. So tricking and outwitting the other person, that's just a part of normal action, normal competition. So Krishna does that. So now they completely become complacent. So what Krishna says, that don't become too elated in happiness and too dejected in distress. So the Kauravas become so elated in success that they just lower all their defenses, they neglect all their defenses. And then Krishna tells Arjuna to grab that opportunity. So I think each context can be explained. I have a website called thespiritualscientist.com. If you go over there and look for whatever controversial questions are there, you'll find answers for them. Okay, thank you. Yeah, killing of Dronacharya is probably the most difficult incident. So, how the killing of Dronacharya work? Isn't that terrible? Yeah, I think it is. There are three distinct things that happen over there. The first is what Dronacharya does. Second is what the Pandavas do, or whatever the Pandavas do or plan to do and do. And third is what Dhristadyumna does. So the Pandavas' main plan, but Krishna is involved in that. So see, it's an emergency situation where Dronacharya is fed up with Duryodhana, because Duryodhana is always goading him. You are partial to the Pandavas. That's why you've not been fighting wholeheartedly. And the 13th day had been some kind of humiliation for Drona, that a child like Abhimanyu penetrated into Chakravyuha and was devastating everything.
Sorry, but that sentence seems to be missing some context.
That sentence requires some context. So then, on the 14th day, so somehow they are able to kill Abhimanyu eventually, unethically, but kill him. But in 14th day, that's a very disgraceful defeat for Drona, because he arranges the whole army to stop Arjuna from reaching Jayadratha, and still Arjuna reaches Jayadratha. And on the 15th day, he just becomes so frustrated because Duryodhana is constantly goading him. So then he starts using celestial weapons against ordinary soldiers. And that is a terrible violation of ethical codes. Like say right now, there's a long war between Ukraine and Russia, then there was a war in the Middle East with Israel and briefly with Iran, or before that with the Hamas. So now there are places where some of these countries had nuclear weapons. But whatever we say about politicians, at least that they had enough sanity that nobody has used nuclear weapons till now. Then if one king, one head of state starts using a nuclear weapon, then other countries may decide that this person has to be killed, has to be assassinated, whatever the means, because this person is causing so much damage. So when Drona starts using celestial weapons against ordinary soldiers, at that time even the sages appear in the sky. And they'll want to stop. What are you doing? Is enough. Stop fighting now. Drona becomes discouraged by that. He says, you are fighting unethically. So now at this point, Krishna tells the Pandavas, you have to stop Drona. If you do not, he will destroy the entire army today. And so Krishna says that the only way we can stop him. Now Drona himself has also given some enigmatic instruction. When the Pandavas ask him, how will we be able to kill you? He says, you cannot kill me, you cannot defeat me. But I'll be defeated only when I, on hearing some disagreeable news from a trustworthy source, lower my weapons. So Krishna tells them that tell Ashwatthama has been killed. So only then he will lower his weapons. So Yudhishthira says, how can I say that? I can't. It's a lie. So then Krishna, Bhima is there nearby. Bhima is relatively much more pragmatic. He says that even he doesn't want to tell a white lie. So he rushes into the enemy camp and there is an elephant named Ashwatthama. And he just hits it, the fierce blow, and Ashwatthama falls and dies. And then he starts celebrating, going near, within Drona's earshot. So Ashwatthama is dead, Ashwatthama is dead, Ashwatthama is dead. Now Drona hears this and his heart starts trembling. And then he thinks, Ashwatthama is extremely powerful, I have given him celestial weapons. He could not have been killed. Now in this time, Ashwatthama is actually wounded. So he's not visible anywhere in the battlefield. So then he says, Bhima is a little fickle-minded. He might speak a lie also. So he says, there's one person who will not speak a lie. That is Yudhishthira. So he approaches Yudhishthira. Now this whole incident seems a bit peculiar overall. Why does Drona ask Yudhishthira? Why does Drona not ask Duryodhana? Why does Drona not ask anyone else from his own army? So what has happened is, Drona is fighting so fiercely on that day that nobody can keep pace with him. So he is very close to the Pandava camp. And Pandava's army is closer. And his own soldiers, his own generals, his own commanders are far away. So that's why he asks Yudhishthira. And Yudhishthira speaks something like a half lie. He says, Ashwatthama is dead. But Narova Kunjarova, which is a human or as an animal, elephant. Now at that point, now he either speaks it softly, that is the point when Krishna blows his conch shell, and Drona doesn't hear this. Now Arjuna's plan at this point, this is a critical part. When initially Krishna proposes this plan, even Arjuna is shocked. He said, this cannot be done. Bhima says, this has to be done. Yudhishthira says, this is in two minds. But Arjuna's plan is that if Drona lowers his weapons, then we will arrest him. And we will keep him in house arrest till the war ends. So this is a plan. The focus of the Pandavas is stopping Drona. Is it killing Drona? Well, if it is necessary. But the killing is not the point, stopping him is the point. So now when he stops, at that time he suddenly, Drona has heard that, the sages are saying I fought unethically and my son has died. What is the point of fighting at all? I lost my son, I have lost my ethics also. And then he just sits on his chariot in meditation and says, I don't want to fight anymore. Now at that time, throughout the war, Drishtadyumna has been trying to attack Drona. And Drishtadyumna is in one sense born. Now this concept of being born for doing something, it's a very burdening concept. Like if you're born to do something, means it's as if your life is useless if you don't do it. So Drishtadyumna has been trying throughout the war to try to kill Drona, and Drona doesn't even fight with him for long. He's just no match to Drona. And on that particular day, the 15th day itself, in front of Drishtadyumna's eyes, Drona kills Drupada. Drona on that day kills Drupada, and Drona kills Virat also. So now for Drishtadyumna, is the father who gave birth to me so that I could kill Drona. In front of my eyes, Drona killed my father. And he's totally frustrated. So when Drona sits in meditation, Drishtadyumna says, this is the moment for me. And he charges upon Drona with his sword. Now, this action is so unexpected. This is so unacceptable. This is so utterly unconscionable that warriors from both sides will scream and yell to Drishtadyumna, stop! But Drishtadyumna is so blinded with frustration and rage that he charges upon Dronacharya, catches him by his hair, drags him out and lops off his head. So now, when this happens, Yudhishthira is appalled. Arjuna is appalled. So what has happened? He says that this was heinous. So basically, the Pandavas do make a conspiracy. You could call it conspiracy, you could call it a scheme, but that is to get Drona to stop fighting. So Drona's actions are unacceptable. He's using celestial weapons against the ordinary warriors. The Pandavas' action is questionable. Now Drishtadyumna's action is unacceptable. So was it a combined conspiracy of the Pandavas to kill Drona in that way? No. It was Drishtadyumna's own action. Now what happens crucially is the way Duryodhan reports this to Ashwatthama. He said, the Pandavas, they lied to your father and they made him numb with pain and then they cold-bloodedly slaughtered his head. Chopped off his head. So Ashwatthama cannot do this. How could Arjuna have done something like this? How could Yudhishthira have done something like this? They are supposed to be noble people. And that is why he tries to use his best weapons. He tries to use the Narayanastra, he tries to use the Bhargavastra. Neither of them work because Krishna works his way out of it. And then finally, that is his justification for killing the Pandavas when they are sleeping. He says, you killed my father when he was unconscious. Therefore, I'm justified in killing you when you are unconscious. Now, he doesn't intend to kill the Pandava sons, but he kills them. And he goes into the Pandava camp and he kills Drishtadyumna. So that is a very unfortunate trajectory. So that was, you could say, the darkest death in terms of morality was the cold-blooded killing of Abhimanyu. But the darkest death in terms of a chain reaction, what happened, was the killing of Dronacharya. So that's why in one sense, the Pandavas have a difference of opinion about what to do. But now, if somebody has killed your sons and killed them in cold blood, why would you even hesitate to get back at him, to punish him? But the Pandavas also feel that, that they also, they understand Ashwatthama is not a bad person. But Ashwatthama just went mad. He felt that the Pandavas did something so terrible, I'll do something terrible in back. So they want to end that whole chapter. No, I doing something bad, you doing something worse, and me do something worse. That's why they want to let him go. But then, when he tries to kill Uttara's boom, when the Pandavas say enough is enough, then they have to disarm him completely, completely disempower him, and then Krishna curses him. Okay, I think that is last question.
Prabhuji, we have seen the story of 2 brothers, 3 brothers, and the 4 brothers, how they ran into misunderstanding conflicts and how they worked out, and there are a lot of lessons. But between these 5 brothers, like in Mahabharata, I haven't at least heard a lot of disagreements between the 5 brothers. Of course, if it were there, maybe we would have one more session on 5 brothers as well. But I'm not very sure whether it is because of something else or am I missing something. Okay, so are there disagreements among the 5 brothers, the Pandavas? Well, definitely there are some places where they are there, and I'd say 2 main incidents. One is when. Yeah.
Sorry, I like these questions because Prabhuji is going to give long answers. And I know these are like amazing questions.
Okay, so
Very eager.
okay. Polite way of pointing out that I'm giving long answers.
I didn't mean it to go that way. I was overwhelmed with happiness. Adhi triggered you on Mahabharata. I was like, yes, it's going to go on. And now we triggered on. It's like the audience here is touching a touchstone. Then we get everything.
Okay.
100 brothers waiting up.
Yes.
Who? 100 brothers. Oh God. Yeah. So there are 2 main incidents. Actually, on the differences between the Pandavas especially. I done a seminar on how to deal with differences among devotees. So that, so there are two main incidents where differences come to a flashpoint. Many, but two main, I would say, before the war. In the war, tempers are hot, so there are multiple time differences come up. But one is when Bhima is poisoned. And Bhima comes back. Bhima wants to punish Duryodhan, and Yudhishthir says no. So Yudhishthir's counsel is accepted even if reluctantly by Bhima. Maybe he's just insecure, let's not provoke him further. Now, in one sense, the Mahabharata is quite candid in saying that they accept Yudhishthir's course of action, but is it the right course of action? It's difficult to say, but maybe at that point, in that situation, it was a sensible course of action. But it turns out that Duryodhana only keeps becoming worse and worse. But the point is, both of them, they go in the direction Yudhishthira says. But the other difference of opinion comes when they are in the Agyatwas. And Virat has a commander named Kichak. And Kichak has an evil eye on Draupadi. And he is the real king over there. Although he's not officially in the king's position. So he tries to force himself on Draupadi when Draupadi runs away and she says, who will save me from the commander? So she goes into the king's court and she begs the king for help. And Kichak just marches in, and in front of everyone else, he slaps and kicks Draupadi. And she falls on the ground, and now Virat doesn't want to lose face. So Virat says that, I don't know the background, I don't know what is the difference of opinion between the two of you, why you resolve it among yourself. So he washes his hands off. Now, Virat has Kanka as his minister, his close friend and confidant minister, that Kanka is Yudhishthir. So then Draupadi turns towards Yudhishthir. Now this whole incident that Kichak is chasing after a woman in public, this is so shocking, so scandalous that the news spreads everywhere. And in the royal palace itself, Bhima has Vallabha is the cook. So Bhima also comes running over there to see what is happening. And he's enraged. So at that time, Draupadi is injured and she is mortified. She looks towards Yudhishthir. And Kanka says that, O Shairendri, great is the reward for those who bear adversity with patience. So now indirectly he is telling her, be patient. And Draupadi is so shocked, so angered. At that time she turns towards Bhima. Bhima is watching from behind. And then like an implicit agreement comes between the two of them. So now Yudhishthir's reasoning is that they are in Agyatwas and Kichak is a formidable warrior. Very difficult for anyone to kill him. If they do anything to Kichak, that will even immediately trigger the suspicion of Duryodhan. So he says that it's just the Agyatwas is about to get over. You just bear it for some time right now. But Draupadi's point is that how can I bear it? What can I do? If he's so brazen as to attack me in public, he'll just wait for an opportunity and pounce on me. And if neither the queen nor the king are stopping, who will stop? So now the way it works out is that Draupadi talks with Bhima, and then she says that I'm ready to be with you, but we have to do it secretly. So she calls him to a dark abandoned building, and then Bhima is waiting. And then Bhima teaches Kichak a lesson. Kichak gets completely crushed and killed by Bhima. Now, in one sense, who is right over here? Yudhishthira says, don't escalate the matter. Bhima takes the matter in his own hands. So now, in one sense, Bhima averts the immediate danger that Draupadi is protected, Shairendra is protected. But then that triggers off. Exactly what Yudhishthira had feared, it happens. And then that's how the Kauravas decide to attack Virat kingdom. And when they attack, then the Pandavas reveal themselves. Primarily Arjuna reveals himself in the war, where he has to fight against the entire army. Now, there's an aspect of the Mahabharata that is not highlighted, is that Duryodhana argues that when Arjuna reveals himself, their Agyatwas period of 1 year is not over. So Now Arjuna calculates it's over. Bhishma also agrees with Arjuna, it's over. But in India, there's solar calendar, lunar calendar, and there is always difference of opinion over sometimes which festival is on this day or that day. So basically, one of the arguments that Duryodhana holds on to is that you did not complete your Agyatwas, and that's why I'll not give your kingdom back to you. So, but the point is that when there are differences of opinion, now was Yudhishthir right when he told Bhima, don't attack Duryodhana? Maybe you can say he's right, but then what happened? Duryodhana became worse. So was Yudhishthir right when he told Bhima that, he told Draupadi, just bear with it? How is she going to bear with it? But then what Bhima did, was that right? Well, they got discovered in one sense. Now whether they discovered before the year got over, Duryodhana basically got an excuse to not give the kingdom to them. So it just becomes complicated. That's why the Mahabharata is not always very black and white about who is right. So there are differences of opinion among them like that also. There is that mainly the differences of opinion are between Bhima and Yudhishthir. There are 3-4 other incidents. Arjuna doesn't have that much of difference of opinion with others. There are 2 elder brothers, and then they have very different dispositions in one sense. Like I said, Yudhishthir is more like a Brahman Kshatriya, and Bhima is more like a Kshatriya. You can say Kshatriya squared. He just wants to fight. And sometimes Arjuna is in between, and Arjuna has to pacify both of them. So it's very difficult because if Arjuna was the eldest brother, it's easier. Both of you listen to me. But both of them are elder to him, and then he has to pacify them. This happens when Draupadi is being humiliated. At that time, Bhima just explodes. And Bhima says to Arjuna, he says, Arjuna, bring fire. I will burn the hands of this foolish Yudhishthir who gambled with these very hands, and because of that, the Panchali is suffering such humiliation. Now, Arjuna, what is he to do? Is he to disobey Bhima? Bhima is so angry, disobeying him will not work, obeying him will be disastrous. So Arjuna has to be expert at this time. So Arjuna turns towards Bhima and says, oh Bhima, why are you speaking words that are increasing the joy of Duryodhana? Because what happened? Duryodhana's dream is to create a split among the Pandavas. And when he sees Bhima turning on Yudhishthir, that he feels, if that happens, I can defeat them. So when Bhima sees Duryodhana smirking, Bhima controls himself by that. So Arjuna also has to be expert in such situations. Okay? Thank you so much. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Oh, 9 o'clock. Yeah.
Very easy. Prabhu, you see, there is a lot of talk, right? Mahabharata did not happen and Ramayana did not happen. They're just concoctions or somebody written. So, what is the best answer we can give to some people?
Okay. So if somebody says Mahabharata or Ramayana didn't happen, I think there are 3 different parts to this question. First is that let's focus on the Mahabharata, because the Ramayana happened so long ago, the evidence for that becomes much more difficult. But in general, how do you get evidence about the past? That's the first question. The second is which incidents can actually have evidence? And third is which evidence is considered valid? So the 3 different questions. So let's look at them. So first is that how do we know whether something happened in the past? So broadly speaking, there is archaeological records, there is architectural records, there are textual records. 3 ways basically. That is, we have some buildings, we have some fossils, and we have some books. Now books means that you can say that if Mahabharata says this happened, then that's not evidence. But are there other books that refer to the Mahabharata? And are there books which are critical, which refer to the Mahabharata? So for example, in the Indian tradition, there is a Hindu, there were Jains and Buddhists, and they often criticize Hinduism. What we want to Sanatana Dharma, Vedic teachings, whatever. And there are quite a few books, because these were against caste system or whatever reasons they criticized. So there are in the Jain tradition, in the Buddhist tradition, there are a number of books which have written which critique either Krishna or Ram or Krishna's teachings or many other aspects of Vedic literature. So these are not people who are partisans of the Vedic tradition. They are not promoters of the Vedic tradition. So they criticize, but not one of them ever says that Krishna and Ram didn't exist. So that this is called intertextuality. That did this particular incident happen? What do other texts talk about it? So the fact that texts critical also talk about Krishna, and they're critical to Krishna, but one of their criticisms is not that Krishna didn't exist. None of their criticisms Krishna did not exist or Ram did not exist. So that now as far as architecture is concerned, now India has been subjected to lots of invasions, and that's why the architecture is very difficult to remain. And both these epics happened in North India. North India was subjected to a lot of invasions. South India was not subjected that much, although it is subjected also. But so the architectural remains are very difficult. One problem also is that India is a tropical country. The heat wears things out. Manuscripts also don't last for very long. Now the biggest problem for trying to prove the historicity of anything in the Vedic tradition is that archaeology doesn't work in India. So see, archaeology is all based on finding fossils. Of course, you can look for underground architectural structures also, but that's architecture. Archaeology is more of, like I say, about fossils, artifacts and fossils. So the problem with fossils is that there is an implicit assumption that the dead are buried. But in the Vedic tradition, the dead are burnt. So there could be entire civilizations could have existed, and there would be nothing in the fossil record of that. So that's why archaeology, especially in the paleontology, specific word for that, paleontology, study of fossils, that works within a Abrahamic religious framework. Paleontology just doesn't work within the Vedic tradition. So that's why the possibility for evidence itself is quite difficult. Now there is the fourth field that is becoming quite prominent. It's called archaeoastronomy. Archaeoastronomy is basically that there is a lot of astronomical description in the Indian texts. Like say when the Kurukshetra war started, they decided a particular muhurta. So what are the muhurta? At that time this planet was here, this planet was here, this was like this. So now with advanced computing, we can, by knowing the position of the celestial objects now, look back and trace, okay, if this planet was here, this planet was here, this planet was here. When did this actually happen? So it's like archaeo means you don't know about the past, but through astronomical descriptions. So there are many specific descriptions in the Mahabharata, for example. For example, when the Kurukshetra war started, there's one very good paper done by one researcher, I forget his name, South Indian researcher only. It's very widely accepted. And he says that the series of astrological formations that are described, they happened at about 5,000 years before. And he says that means that this archaeological formation, astronomical formation happened 5,000 years ago. Now that research itself is indisputable. The computer projections are fairly reliable in that. So now some critics try to argue that actually the books were only written 2,500 years ago, but in order to create the illusion that the books were written long ago, they put this description of astrological formations at that time. They added them. But the question comes, if it were true, how would they have the technology at that time, that if the book was written 2,500 years ago, how would they have the technology to know what were the astrological formations 2,500 years before that? So it's just, it's not really acceptable. So there is strong evidence now. Now there is archaeologically also, we have found evidence for Dwarka and on the underwater on the bait of the coast of Dwarka, and lots of seals and other things which are very similar to what is described in the Yadu kingdom in the Mahabharata. So I would say there is a reasonable amount of evidence available from what is possible. India has been a poor country, and India has, for a major part of its history, has been ruled by leftist socialist rulers who were not sympathetic to a tradition. So very little funds were put to try to do archaeological research also. Now what happens with Christianity and Islam, because they share some roots. So Christianity, Islam, Judaism, they all share some roots. That is why a lot of research has gone into trying to prove the historicity of the Bible, of the Old Testament, the New Testament. Some of it has been proven. So that's the first part. So now what evidence is there? Now what can be proven? See, nobody can, you will never have any historical evidence that can prove Krishna is God. So that we can prove Krishna as a person existed. Now, how can we prove that Krishna lifted Govardhan? What evidence will we have for that? You say there's a painting of Krishna lifting Govardhan. Anybody can make a painting like that. So the supernatural incidents that happened, it is almost impossible to get historical evidence of that. You may see there's the footprint of Krishna in some rocks in Vrindavan or something like that. But that's not an evidence that some skeptical person will be able to accept that. So in general, there is a difference between the historicity of Krishna and the divinity of Krishna. So the historicity means history and historicity are two different things. Historicity is historical authenticity, that the person actually existed. So there is a reasonable amount of evidence for the historicity of Krishna. And that has changed in the last 20-30 years. So around 2000, even the mainstream academic scholars would say Krishna is probably not a historical person. But now almost all academics also accept Krishna as a person existed. Now what all he did, that is something which you can't exactly prove. Especially divinity cannot be proven through any kind of historical record. Because miracles, what evidence will be accepted for that? Now the third part, that's what brings it to what evidence is acceptable. So what kind of evidence can be there? What can the evidence prove? And what kind of evidence will be acceptable? So now there is the word mythology that comes up. Sometimes we recoil against that word. Now mythology can be used to mean imaginary stories, but mythology can also, it has a positive connotation where it means stories that have a lot of symbolic value, independent of their historicity. That mythology doesn't imply that they are not history, but their significance is much more for what they represent than what actually happened. So, like there's some person has that particular story has gained mythic proportions. It's become like a myth. Not that it's become false, but it's become that important. So, in general, I don't find it very helpful to get into this debate about whether the Ramayana and the Mahabharata are in every single detail that is told, are they historically accurate? Now, did Ram and Krishna exist? I said that the historical evidence for that is good. It's fairly good. But exactly, is the Ramayana and the Mahabharata depicting exact accurate report of what happened over there? It is going to be very difficult to prove that for anyone. So that's why the best way to approach is that get people to first to appreciate the wisdom in the book. As they appreciate the wisdom in the book, even if they approach it as mythology, that these are important books, these are books that have impacted Indian society. There was a prominent Christian missionary, one of the most successful Christian missionaries in India, and he wrote a book about how Christians should preach to Indians. And in that book, his strongest recommendation is understand the Indian mind. Every Christian missionary in India should read the Ramayana. It's because no book has influenced the Indian mind more than the Ramayana. So, if we just objectively look at these books, there is wisdom in the books. And once people appreciate the wisdom, then gradually they'll start becoming more and more open to it. So, if we insist that this is literal history and that Ram is God and Krishna is God, and with that approach we come, those who have some Shraddha, they'll accept it. But those who are skeptical, they'll just not be able to accept it. So, if we approach that this is a wisdom text rather than a revealed text, then let them approach it as a wisdom text first. see the wisdom in it, and gradually they may come to the point that there's a revelation over here. There is some. Now, Bhaktivinoda Thakur uses the same approach when he's talking about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's divinity. He wrote a book for a Western audience on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his life and his teachings. And in the introduction, he says that, now, so as far as the question of the identity of Mahaprabhu is concerned, we leave it up to our esteemed readers to answer the question the way they find it persuasive. As far as the Bengali Vaishnavas are concerned, they accept Mahaprabhu to be God, to be Krishna himself, and the many miracles he performed are for them the evidence of his divinity. But then miracles like changing the form were performed even by demons like Ravan. So he is himself taking the devil's advocate over here. So miracles in themselves are not the proof of divinity. But he says, what is most special about Mahaprabhu is the gift of love of God that he is giving. So irrespective of how the question of the identity of Mahaprabhu is resolved, we urge all our readers to try out the process of Sankirtan that Mahaprabhu is giving. And in the experience of the flood of love of God that you will relish in your heart, that will be the ultimate confirmation of the identity of Mahaprabhu. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki, Gaur Premanande.
Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji and Mataji, this is the last session of Prabhuji in this tour to Hyderabad, and it's ending in such an amazing note. Prabhuji is like, I mean, I've been hearing Prabhuji for the last maybe 15 years, since the time I came to Krishna consciousness. And sometimes when we, what is it? I forgot, marginal utility principle, what is it? Diminishing marginal utility, something like that.
Law of diminishing returns.
Yeah, I'm a very bad science student. That's the only answer I wrote right. Is that law doesn't apply to Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. The more you hear, the attraction keeps going more and more and more. And satsang never feels that it should end ever. So I can tell you one thing, you can ask questions, you can keep going on, and we can be here next night, 9 o'clock. And still you will be like, my God, there's so much more to know. And thanks for the questions, especially the questions that triggered the most, more and more. Everybody got benefited. So many things came out, right? And Mataji, especially when she asked about Mahabharata, last time when Prabhuji was here, he did a series on those 18 days. That was my favorite session. I requested Prabhuji because since the time I've known Prabhuji, I wanted him to speak about Mahabharata, especially those 18 days. What happened in those 18 days? How did Krishna, focused on Krishna, how did Krishna handle every character in each day? So there are 9 sessions that their recordings are there. So they can share in your group here. They're on my channel also, Leelan Das. Don't subscribe it, but go to the playlist. And there is a playlist called Those 18 Days. All 9 lectures are there. It's a joy to hear them. And Prabhuji has given many lectures, and Prabhuji himself told about spiritual scientists. So don't miss it. Prabhuji, thank you very much for coming to Hyderabad. I don't know how else to say that, but I was just thinking that Krishna told at the end of Bhagavad Gita, whoever explains this message to the world is most dear to me. But next time, in next Kalpa, when Krishna tells Bhagavad Gita, it's going to be 701 verses, where there will be a special verse for Prabhuji. That whoever explains this to me, explains this in this way, right? Lord Krishna of course spoke Bhagavad Gita for everyone, but the immediate thing he resolved is he solved the war puzzle for Arjuna. But Prabhuji is solving, by explaining the Bhagavad Gita, he is solving the war puzzle for all of us. Whatever different wars that we are fighting in our life, Prabhuji, he analyzes and he takes it forward. Unbelievable. And finally when Shankaracharya told, Sarva Upanishadu Gavo, Sota Gopalananda, Partho Vasu Sudhir Bhukta, Sutta Gita Amrutama, which means entire Upanishads. You heard this was very famous. All Upanishads are like a cow. And Gopal Nandana is milking the cow and the milk is being taken by Arjuna. But if Shankaracharya comes back, he's going to add not Partho as Sudhir Bhokta, Chaitanya Charitanya, Prabhu Sudhir Bhokta. And he's not only just taking the milk, he's making paneer with it, he's making cheese with it. He's just giving it in such a relishing way. You know, we have Bhagavad Gita, but we are so fortunate in entire ISKCON society that we have Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, who brings that Bhagavad Gita with such a nice understanding, so many prayers. Every verse of Bhagavad Gita is a prayer. You should buy that book. And there are books where he has connected verses across chapters. I mean, this kind of contribution, what Prabhuji you are leaving for us is unmatchable.
And the calendar.
And the calendar, the Gita calendar,
Really, I would say you should buy all Prabhuji's books.
all Prabhuji's books. And
So, Lilandru, I'm hearing your words, and my heart is torn between appreciating your imagination and reproaching the implication.
I will get the next one. Reproaching the implication.
Reproaching. Going to ask. Going to ask.
No, the implication,
Where is this going?
Bhagavad Gita will have 700 verses. That's a
No, that's my, my request to Lord Krishna. That when he's going to tell again, tell one verse specifically about Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. Because without you, Prabhu, the kind of understanding that many in ISKCON, believe me, if some of you are coming here first time, you are the most fortunate. And some of you are coming again and again, you are the most fortunate. Because Prabhuji, somebody like Prabhuji coming to Hyderabad, it's a God forbidden city. Literally, there's nothing good about it. Bad, already bad. Right? So, sadhus coming here, especially Chaitanya Charan Prabhu coming here, and is willing to come here and give his time to us. It's very late, but Prabhuji is thinking about us that it's late. Of course, we're also thinking about Prabhuji, it's late, but still continuing, giving this kind of nectar. Who is going to answer these questions, tell me? Just go and ask these questions in internet, you will get, I know what kind of answers you'll get. Crazy answers. Not many answers are Shastra, backed up. And Prabhuji's one question is, Mahabharat myth or Ramayana myth or not? What kind of an answer was that? In 3 different levels. I mean, who can even, unless, Krishna is speaking through Prabhuji and wanting to reveal himself, it's not even possible that, something like that can happen. So, I love the way Prabhuji uses the pad. Last time when Prabhuji came, last day, I took this pad only. And I tried to write something on it. I wish I had the pad right now. I don't want it now. But Prabhuji puts the 2 bars. One like this and one like that. And then he puts 2 different analysis. So, if we can imagine the bar subtly, so there's one bar where we want Prabhuji to come more and more. And the other side doesn't exist, which says less and less. It's okay. And Prabhuji says he wants to come here more and more. And the other side may exist. It might say less and less. So this quadrant doesn't exist where less and less matters. It is illusion, right? And the where he wants to come and we want him to come less also doesn't exist. And where he wants to come, he doesn't want to come and we want him to come absolutely exists. Right? And where we want him to come and he wants to come is our prayer to him that he should come. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. So let us thank His great Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. Last 6 days, Prabhuji has given tirelessly so many lectures, morning, evening. If you all want Prabhuji to come back to my home, Ankura, my home, Tridasha, loud Hari Bol. What Praveen Prabhu and Suma Mataji have done is they have just opened the gas. Right? Now, the whole place is going to burn with Krishna consciousness. Right? Because you don't know what's coming behind it. And Srila Prabhupada's world, Srila Prabhupada, Blaze. Yeah, blaze or burn, whatever it is. Yeah, so I'm not good at English. So, what Srila Prabhupada has done, by going to America, by doing all this sacrifices, by writing the purports, translations, initiating so many disciples, and so much, so much, so much. It's an endless world of ISKCON. And what you just saw is one lotus coming, from ISKCON out right here. And there are many, many lotuses like this. And you are very fortunate. Don't think what you are receiving here is limited to what you are hearing from me or them or anybody. You just entered another world, right? And if you just remain in that world, you will be wondering, I never even expected. That's what happened with me, right? I didn't know. I just went to the first satsang because my wife forced me to go. And now, I can't even imagine, what I've received out of it. So be rest assured, just hang on. Difficulties will come, challenges will come, reversals will come, misunderstandings will come. But if you just stay here, you're going to receive gold, nothing less, right? Nothing less. And time is going to make sure that we are in the bus and we are all going back to Goloka. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Let us pray for Prabhuji's very good health and Prabhuji's travels and Prabhuji's preaching missions, Prabhuji's projects, Prabhuji's ideas, like writings, books, articles, outreach, everything should fructify, everything should excel, amaze the whole world, and whatever impact that he wants to create should quadruplify and should impact all the souls, across the world with our sincere, heartfelt one Hare Krishna Mahamantra.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare.
I don't want to miss thanking Her Grace Janva Priya Mataji, who is not in the scene, who is never in any class, but she has been doing a wonderful service of making prasadam for Prabhuji, at every day, morning, evening, and making it very specific to Prabhuji's diet requirements. Let us thank her with loud Haribol. Let's also thank all the organizers.
Sai,
Sai. Where is Sai Teja Prabhu?
the books.
Yeah, he's been there. Let's thank Sai Teja Prabhu for being with Prabhuji for all the 6 days, making sure Prabhuji is taken care, and whatever he needs to receive is coming on time with loud Haribol. And let's thank all the devotees who organized all these wonderful programs in different places. It took a lot of effort, especially weekday programs, weekday morning, weekday evening. So, so many efforts, so many sacrifices. And all the devotees who also came in the morning sessions and also the evening sessions, right? These US calls happen in the morning and evening. For software people, actually, it's not just Monday to Friday, it is morning and evening, which is the most critical time, because that is a connect time. And in spite of being that, many devotees came sincerely for all these sessions. That only says how much interest you have in it, and that is the only reciprocation we can give for your association. So, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Actually, I say I travel across the world. What all of you are doing in Gachipoli is Dilan who came here and started. So this is probably among the top 5 places where preaching is expanding in the world right now. It's the quality of the potential audience that is there, the quality of the actual audience that is there, the kind of training that is happening, and the way you are preaching and expanding, doing wonderful festivals, and not just doing festivals and leaving it that. In the festivals, there is a funnel for programs. From programs, there is a funnel for further growth. So it's something remarkable and revolutionary is happening over here. And my best wishes and prayers that Krishna keep drawing all of you closer to him on one side, and then keep pushing you away from him so that you bring others and bring them closer to him. So going inward towards Krishna and going outward towards the world, to get the world to Krishna.
कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यश्च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्री चैतन्य चरण प्रभु की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, जय गौर हरि प्रेमानंद। Yeah, so there are very nice books of Prabhuji, especially the Ramayana in Telugu. See, what I'm suggesting is take as many as you can. Don't take just for you. Take it as a gift for many others. Because there are no better gifts than books, and especially books written by Prabhuji, where there is such a simple explanation of all, difficult concepts, especially translated in Telugu. When Prabhuji brought them here because it's coming to Telangana, you can take 5566, it's just 200 rupees each, and get it signed by Prabhuji if you wish to, and give it to your friends, your relatives, your parents. Hare Krishna. Thank you.